Hey guys, welcome to Builder Funnel Radio. This is episode 46 with Dwayne Pierce, and Dwayne is coming to us from the future. Not really, but he's in Australia, so we had to work the time zones a little bit. He's the next day, but this one is a fun one because we talk about how you can get paid up front for quoting and planning out a project. And I think this is a really important topic right now. I still think there's a lot of room to grow in the industry. I think more and more people need to make this shift, but trying to put up a barrier earlier in your sales process. And I only say a barrier just to weed out some people that are probably not a good fit for you, and you can save a lot of time and then start charging for planning out your project, scoping it out. And so we kind of dive into the weeds on that topic. Dwayne also has been kind of teaching builders for a little while now, and he has a couple of stories in this episode that are kind of mind-blowing and super cool. So I think you'll really enjoy those. And again, sit back and relax. This is episode 46 with Dwayne Pierce. Dwayne, glad to have you on the show today. I'm pretty excited to have this conversation, kind of hear the story. But yeah, thanks for joining me.
No worries. Thanks, mate. It's yeah, I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, I know we just connected maybe just a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, it was fun to hear your journey and the story and everything, and excited to share that with everybody. But I always like to kind of kick things off with just, how'd you get into the construction space? This world that we're all living in.
Mate, look, it's just something I've always been really interested in. My father was a painter in the industry and had quite a large business. And like I remember as a kid growing up, like every chance I got, days off school or weekends or whatever, like I was always on the building site, sort of checking things out. And yeah, just I've always had a love for, I guess, working with timber and working outdoors. And yeah, it just grew from there.
That's cool. And then I guess maybe transition that into kind of, your business and how things got going, after that early interest, so to speak.
Yeah, so I couldn't, originally I couldn't get over here we have what's called an apprenticeship to get into your trade, and I couldn't get one of them straight out of school. So I left school at 15 and I ended up working in a timber yard. So we were making prefabricated frames and roof structures and that sort of thing. And I worked there for nearly 2 years until I got the opportunity to get an apprenticeship. So I left that job and went and started working for a builder. Did that, worked for 2 builders, finished my apprenticeship, and then sort of didn't really know where I wanted to go with it. So I ended up back working for my old man painting for about 18 months. And then he was doing some work for a large property developer in Brisbane. And yeah, he sort of he knew that had done my apprenticeship as a carpenter, and he ended up offering me some work, and it just sort of snowballed from there. And I ended up putting a couple of employees on and started working for this developer, and sort of within 2 years we sort of outgrew him. He couldn't keep up the work. Like, I was pretty ambitious. I wanted to get ahead in life, so I started chasing more work. And before you knew it, like I was in my mid 20s. Like, I was only 23, sort of 25. We had at times we had sort of 30 carpenters working for me, and we did that right up to my late 20s, until such time I got my own builder's license, so I could do my own work.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty good growth there. And I think, I think it's interesting whenever you have those growth stories, it's not always perfectly easy, and I know you went through some tough times that kind of followed. What happened next?
Look, so once I had enough experience, and I then had to, over here in Australia, you have to go and do a 2-year course to become a builder. So once I had enough experience, I went and did that course. I completed that, I think when I was 28, 29. And then I was quite lucky because I'd been doing contract work for a lot of developers. When they found out that I had my own builder's license, I started getting asked to do lots of work. So it was quite good. I didn't have to do any marketing. I started a building company or construction company, and just straight away for the first 5 years had enormous amounts of work. But yeah, we got into a little bit of trouble. Like I'm sure your listeners would be aware, like you get into the trade because you love building things and working outdoors. You don't necessarily get into it thinking that you're going to be running a business.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get into that mindset. And so for the first sort of 4 or 5 years, running a construction company was fantastic. We had huge turnover. And I thought things were going really, really well, but like we were just constantly chasing our tail. We never had any money in the bank. We were having to pick and choose what bills we paid. And we didn't understand how to run a business, didn't understand contracts, and it all fell in a hole pretty quickly.
Yeah. So what do you think were some of your biggest lessons learned from that period of time there?
Mate, there was a lot. It's hard to pinpoint one or even a few, but I was quoting the jobs very accurately in regards to the building materials and the labour and things, that I had no understanding of the running cost of my business. So like even over here in Australia, like when you get your building license, there's very little education on the actual business side of it. So like it's not uncommon for a small building business to sort of have 10 to 15% of its turnover chewed up by running costs. And in the early days, like I said, we were pricing the materials, the labour perfectly, and then putting a percentage on top of it and thinking we were making or hoping that we're going to make that money, and not realising that more than that percentage was actually getting chewed up by the day-to-day running of the business. So yeah, within 4 to 6 years, we dug ourselves a big hole. Everything, like we'd been extremely profitable back when I was just a carpenter, and all of our success just all dwindled away when we became a builder because we just weren't running it as a business.
Man, yeah, I'm sure that was really tough. And I think it was around that time you said you kind of you had to make some changes, but you started doing some seminars for other builders. Is that right? And kind of maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so we actually went through a few ups and downs, and three really. Like we got into a bit of a hole. We worked our way out of it. We then sort of had some bad clients that we didn't manage very well. Like looking back now, like at the time, I was like most contractors and builders, I was blaming the clients, and then it was just like I realised like it actually wasn't the clients, it was me. So after our sort of third time, where we really got into trouble, we had bad clients, we didn't get paid for some work, we had really bad cash flow, had a few outside things going on as well, and it got to a point where we were nearly broke. So that was back in 2013, and then it was at a point where like we went on Christmas break between 2013 and 2014, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. I was actually looking for another job. I wanted to go and work for someone else. I was just over it. And anyway, while this was all happening, like we still had some really good jobs in the pipeline. We come back from Christmas break in 2014 with it, and we had some good emails. Like some of the jobs we'd been working hard to try and get had come through. So we made a call that like we had a good team. So like I'm not a quitter. I didn't want to let the team down. So we actually we had a few team meetings, and we're like, well, like no one in our business knew except for me and my wife where we were at. And we actually sat down, we had a meeting, we explained to the team what was happening, where the position we're in. And we're like, look, we're not going to quit. These are all good guys, but we don't want to be in this situation again. And it was it was quite good because they all knew that there was something going on. Like they were all trying hard as well to make the business work, and they all stood by us. So we all, as a team, decided to. None of us wanted to be in that position again. They all wanted the business to succeed because we'd looked after them. So we made the call to start seeing some business coaches, and we sort of shopped around over a 12-month period. We tried 3 different guys, and we realized very quickly that a lot of business coaches are just regurgitating like their clients' information. Like a lot of them, even though they say they specialize in our industry, they'd never been a builder. They'd never worked in the industry. They didn't physically understand mentally what we had to deal with, how we had to deal with clients. Like it was basically just a typical business coach. Like they didn't understand our industry. So I decided to put a course together. Like I thought the solution was to train the public, like our clients, like sort of give them an insight into a construction business and what goes on and how it works. And so we did those. We did those seminars for free, and it actually turned into a really good marketing tool. So we called them Build Your Knowledge Before You Build Your Dream. And we didn't expect it to grow like it did, but it turned out like every time we had one of these free seminars where we educated the public, we're actually getting sort of 2 or 3 jobs. So we might get anywhere from sort of, I think the smallest one we had was 12 and up to like 20, 23 people. So like it was pretty good turnaround. Like you have a free seminar, you invite 20 people along, you get 3 jobs. But while doing that, with everything I've always done, I've always tried to improve and make it better. And by taking feedback on board from the people that were coming to these seminars, I sort of had this light bulb moment where I was like, hang on a minute, it's not actually the clients I need to be helping, it's actually the builders. And that's the point where I realized like all the issues I'd had for the previous 10 years were all, I couldn't really blame the client. Like the client had contributed to some of the issues, but it was really, I wasn't running my business properly. I didn't understand my contracts. So we stopped doing those seminars and we started doing seminars for builders.
Yeah, I think, sorry, I was just thinking about that model, with the seminars, and I think it's kind of an underutilized model today. Even I know several people do that here in the States and with pretty good success. And it all goes back to kind of this new way of marketing, which, we talk about a lot here at Builder Funnel, which is it's inbound marketing, but it's this process of like, hey, if you teach people about what you do, you're going to draw people in because they're interested to know about it. And, it's the same thing with, live seminars and in-person events. But I want to kind of talk a little bit more about that, because I think you said your first seminar towards the builders was called Rules of the Game. And so what was kind of the premise of that seminar? And then I'd love for you to share some of the feedback that you got from people kind of coming up to you later and talking about, the impact that seminar had.
Yeah. So we teamed up with a guy that specialized, he called himself a builder's coach. So we had the content, he had the audience. So I put together a seminar which I called Rules of the Game, and it was purely focused at builders and contractors. And the reason I called it Rules of the Game was, I guess you have gridiron over there. We have football. So it was like if you send 2 teams onto a field to play a sporting game, and one team knows nothing about the process or the rules, it's going to end in disaster. Like everyone in the stand is going to be booing, and it'll be a nightmare. So we had a lot of success with that. So we did a few of them sort of up the east coast of Australia. And the reason it sort of kept growing, the very first one we did in Brisbane, like I'd never done it before. I'd never stood, like we had 42, I think, or 44 builders in the room. And I'd never stood in front of a group that size and talk. Like I'm quite a shy person. I don't make a habit out of getting in front of people and that sort of thing. And I was extremely nervous. Anyway, I thought the day had gone really bad. Like my wife was there, one of my office girls was there, and every time we had a break, I kept asking like, what's going on here? Like it doesn't seem like people are engaging. And I thought it was failing. I didn't think these guys were getting anything out of it. Anyway, at the end of the day, we hired a room. We were supposed to be out of the room at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I think we ended up getting kicked out of there about 6:45 or something. So after it finished, 80% of the people in the room all hung around. And it wasn't that they didn't get any benefit out of the day. It was that they were embarrassed to put their hand up or ask questions. And then at the end of the day, as a group, like I just got bombarded. Like everyone was like, man, like this is fantastic. Like, but the two things that really won me over and made us quite emotional, there was one guy there in particular. He was in his sort of early 50s, and he came up to me and he gave me a hug and he had tears in his eyes, and he's like, man, if I'd have come to something like this like 30, 40 years ago, I'd probably still have my wife, I'd have a family, and I probably would have made something in my life. He's like, I've only got a few years left to turn my life around. He goes, I've struggled my entire career. And he said, everything you spoke about today just really hit home with me. And he goes, I'll try and implement that for a few years now and see if I can make a go of it before I retire. But the really big one was the following week. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a Wednesday night. And I've made a habit out of not answering my phone. Like I finish work. I ignore my phone. It's so I had this private number. It kept ringing and ringing. And anyway, after a little while, my wife's like, "You better answer that. It could be an emergency or something." And I answered it, and I couldn't understand. There was a guy on the phone, just sobbing, like crying, and I couldn't even understand what he was trying to say. And I'm like, mate, who is this? Like, what's going on? Calm down. And he's like, Dwayne, I just wanted to thank you. He said, I come to your seminar last week, and he goes, you've saved my life. He said, I've lost my wife, I've lost my family. I was ready to neck myself. And he said, I didn't realize that every builder was dealing with the same problems. He goes, I thought it was just me. And man, that just really hit home for us. Like, we're like, wow, if we can make that sort of difference, then we need to do something about it. So that was about 4 years ago now, and we've really grown, and we've sort of focused a lot on helping other builders now.
Yeah, man, that's incredible. And yeah, when you get a call like that, I imagine it's hard to stop doing what you're doing because it's, yeah, I mean, literally, saved a life and could be others, so that's, yeah, I can imagine that you'll never forget that phone call.
I mean, it really took us back, and like so we sort of got to a point where like it's become, even though it's a little bit of a business opportunity to help other builders, like we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Like we've been through the hard times, we've learned a lot of lessons. So we've learned from our experiences, and we want to help other builders. That we don't want other guys to have to go through what we went through. So it's sort of, besides a business opportunity, it's almost become like a purpose now. Like besides that, I'm just so passionate about the industry. Like I love quality work. I love people doing a quality job, and like if it's quite a shame. Like so many tradesmen get into the industry because they really, really love what they do, but then they don't understand the business side of it, and it makes them lose their passion for what they loved doing and why they started doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I think that happens with a lot of professions. You kind of start as an individual craftsman, and then you you do good work, so you get hired for more work, and then you need to hire people, and then
Yeah.
suddenly you're in business, and you're a manager, and you need to figure out your
Yeah.
finances. And so, yeah, I know one of the big kind of problem areas is around, quoting and, accuracy there, and, do you charge for that process? And I know that's an area of interest of yours, but I guess, why is this such a big problem, within the industry right now?
Look, so that's the main area we focus on now. So um, we've actually, our construction business is only a third of what it used to be. And we actually, after we did those seminars, we realized that so many people were struggling, and they started emailing us for our information, our spreadsheets, and how we were costing jobs. So we actually teamed up with some guys, Apivo, which some of them live in the States, some guys are in Sweden, but we spent 2 years or nearly 3 years developing software, which is called QuoteSpec, which we're actually hoping to bring over to the States next February. But we saw, through all the bad experiences we had in our business, we realized that so many issues can be resolved purely back at the beginning, when you're providing your proposal. So we build a platform that allows builders and contractors to provide their clients a really professional quality proposal, but it also helps them do their takeoff and their scopes of work, so that their clients know what they're getting, their contractors know what they're doing. And we've set it up in a way which, especially here in Australia, like, it actually resolves a lot of issues that become contractual issues during a job. So two things that we really push, and we're trying to educate the industry, is all builders should be paid for their time. So in the very preliminary stages of a job, there's no reason that a builder, I think, I'm not sure, your builders over there, you call them builders or contractors? Like, who's the head?
Yeah, it depends. A lot of names are thrown out, but you've got, a builder or a general contractor. Yeah, I mean, there's custom
Yeah.
builders, community builders. So yeah, a wide range of names.
Yeah, well, so whoever it may be, but basically the head contractor on job, the guy that's putting in the most effort and collating all the information and pricing and everything, he should be paid for his time, just like every other profession. So, like, at the end of the day, the head contractor puts in just as much or more work than the engineer, the designer, the architect, because they're collating all this information and pulling it all together. And then generally they're the one that's taking the responsibility. Like, they're the one that's going back to the client and putting their business on the line every time they sign a contract.
Totally.
So yeah, like, I believe the head contractor or the builder should be paid a fee in the preliminary stages to be involved as another consultant.
Excuse me. Yeah, I think a lot of guys are making that shift, but it's still a small percentage, right? There's still so many people doing the free quote, free consultation. What's your take on that? I mean, I know you think we should get paid, but I mean, is that hurting them, or are those just two different ways you can take, or is there really a huge benefit to charging?
Mate, there's enormous benefits. We look, I think it's one of those things that's it's definitely, the tides are turning. I'm not sure about over there, but like over here, for the past 100 years, everyone's driven around or had their buildings with all these big free quote signs or free proposals, and
Definitely.
we've created, the industry's created our own problem. But I definitely believe, like, we're having a lot of success with it. So, and it's endless. So there's so many areas. Like, one is we've increased our bottom line. So most guys just spend, I would say it's something like 70 or 80% of their time in their business on those preliminary stages. because really once the jobs get going, it gets handed over to a supervisor or the contractors. So all that time that you would normally spend doing that is time that you never used to get paid for. So we've gone in our business, in our construction business, we were like every builder. Like I think Sean Van Dyke describes it the best as the craftsman cycle. Like you get stuck, and we were the same. Like you get stuck, you think that every single job that comes across your desk, you have to be pricing. So, and you get stuck in this mentality that if you're not pricing all the time, then you're not busy. So you spend hours and hours and hours, like after hours, on weekends, away from your family, pricing jobs that a lot of the time you take one look at the drawings and you know that it's not in budget or they like it's not going to work. Whereas now, so we've gone from being stuck in that to now we only quote, like in the last 12 months, like we're only a small business. We only do sort of anywhere from sort of 5 to 12 jobs a year, depending on the value. Like our average new home price is sort of around $1 million, and we go up to as high as sort of $4 million. So it doesn't, like, we don't need a lot of work to keep going.
Sure.
So we've gone from quoting 30, 40 jobs a year and still only do, like our biggest year we've ever had, we did 13 jobs. So the percentage of like the time you spend quoting compared to the jobs you win is ridiculous. In the last 3 years, we quote, it would probably average, say, 8 to 12 jobs a year. But we're still doing our 6 to 10 jobs a year. Like we're winning like 90% of the jobs, and we're getting paid for our time to as another consultant.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how do you go about pricing that time? Is it a flat fee, or is it percentage based, or what's your philosophy there?
Look, we've tried a few different ways, but the one that we're having the most success with is our current model, and we basically do what we call a preliminary agreement. So I believe it all comes back to education. Like you need to educate your client on the benefits of paying you a fee to be involved. And so we charge $3,800 to be involved as a consultant in the early stages. Some people might think that's a lot or not enough. I don't believe that covers our time that we spend, but what it does, it gets us a commitment from the client. Like if we can educate them enough to see the benefit and get them to pay us a fee, we're 90% towards getting that job.
Yeah, they've got some skin in the game, right? They're saying yes to you at least once, and so
so once you've like it's a hard thing. Like I definitely believe over here in Australia there's some builders that are charging fees and are still not providing a good service, which I think is only damaging the industry. I believe there's absolutely no reason why a client shouldn't pay us a fee to be involved in the preliminary stages, but you need to provide good information for that. So like with our quote spec software or our app, we're having a lot of success. So it's a platform that allows the contractors to lay it out. Like our quotes can be anything up to 30 pages long. It's a really easy platform to use. It provides a quality document. You can attach photos, you can attach diagrams. And so 9 times out of 10, I'll go to meet a new client now. The first thing we do is we have a questionnaire. Like some people think it's crazy, but like why go and spend time with someone if they won't take 10 minutes to fill out a little bit of a questionnaire and get a feel if they can help or they can work with your business.
For sure. Yeah.
So that's pretty much what we do.
That's cool. So so you do the questionnaire and then you go meet with them. Do you meet any other times before you basically ask for that 3,800? How much time do you have invested before you say, hey, to move on, we need to make this commitment?
Look, not these days, not very much. So like we don't hide it. So it's in our marketing, it's on our social media. We've actually got designers and architects now that absolutely love our service. So 9 times out of 10 now, when we get a client come to us, they already know what we're going to do. So we haven't tried to hide it. It's very open and out there. Yeah, I get a phone call or I go and meet someone. They already know that they're gonna, if they want to move further with us, they're going to have to pay us a fee. The only sort of step we need to take from there, generally when I meet with them, I'll have QuoteSpec, our app, on my phone or on my iPad, and I'll show them a demonstration of the type of proposal we're going to give to them. And 9 times out of 10, we've got it to a point now where I've actually had people, while I'm at the meeting, ask me for my bank account details so they can pay me while I'm at the meeting.
Gotta like that.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and I like your suggestion there of using a sample quote of like, here's what we did for another project of like these 30 pages, and somebody goes, oh, okay, yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into this, and kind of it's something tangible, because I think it's tough to just go, yeah, pay us because we're experts, and okay, yeah, sure. But yeah, and you've mentioned QuoteSpec a few times. It sounds like, I know that's what you use in your business, but you said this is something that you're rolling out to other builders and contractors. And yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that. And I guess if there's a couple of things that you really like, since you use it, in your day-to-day, where you feel like, yeah, this element really gives me an edge.
So look, it's growing. It's definitely grown into something that we didn't expect it to. It started off as just a platform for guys to be able to provide a proposal, and now it's growing. So we've had it on the market here in Australia for maybe 15 months now, and we're having huge success. So we've currently got builders all over Australia. I think we've got over 600 winning quotes on our system at the moment, and then it's grown into, right at the moment, and we're hoping it'll be out by the end of October this year. We've made it a full estimating software, so you'll be able to scan your plans in, do all your color-coded takeoffs. But a few things that we don't believe there's anything else on the market that compares to it. So it's really, we've combined so many things. So you can do all your takeoffs, your quantities, your costings on there. You can add, we call them comments, but they're scopes of work. So we believe a lot of jobs get into trouble because builders and contractors don't give their clients enough information, or the correct information. A client doesn't have to see how many sheets of drywall or how many lengths of timber or how many nuts and bolts and all that sort of thing. A client wants to see exactly what it is they're getting. So the very first thing we do when we get it, so it allows you to scan your plans in. It allows you to it comes with a pre-configured list of categories and items, and you can allocate trades and suppliers to those items. So you scan your plans in, you do a scope of works, you press send for a quote. It'll send that information to whatever supplier or contractor you've allocated to that item. They can send their quote back, so you put them in the system. I think I spoke to you last time we spoke, on remodeling or renovation type work, it can get very messy as to where guys are stopping and starting. So one thing we're really doing with our, once we have the ability to do all your color-coded plans, each item, you'll be able to attach a color-coded plan to each item. So cool. Painting, for instance, on a remodel, if it's a tight budget and the client doesn't want to repaint the entire outside of the house, if you can highlight on a plan and mark exactly what you've allowed to do the painting, when it comes time to build the job, there's no question about, oh, I thought you were painting there, or why didn't you paint that? it's simple because you have something there that clearly shows you, well, look, here's this highlighted area is what I've allowed. If you want to do that area there, it's going to be a variation.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a nice feature for sure. So I guess if people are interested in learning a little bit more about, quote spec or that sort of thing, what's a good place to track that down?
If they go to www.quotespec.com, or check out QuoteSpec Instagram and Facebook. But we're just going through the process at the moment. We're updating because you guys call things a little bit differently to what we do over here. So we're just in the process of changing all the terminology, setting it up for your tax system, and we're planning on coming to the States next February.
Oh, right on. So you'll be at the Builder Show then?
We're aiming to be, yeah. Just as we're not going to have a stand there or anything. We're just planning on coming over, introducing ourselves to a few guys, and just sort of getting to know some guys over there.
Very cool. Well, yeah, we'll make sure to put quote spec in the show notes. So if people want to check that out, they can find that and yeah, get involved. And yeah, I guess I think this whole, getting paid to scope something out, it's super important topic for today. And I think a lot of people are, maybe they've heard of it, maybe they aren't all the way implementing it, or they're like trying it, but they're a little bit scared because they feel like they might lose some jobs. I think this has been really helpful, but what's that?
Yeah, you'll definitely lose jobs while you're testing the water. Like I used to go to meetings when we sort of started implementing this, planning on telling people they're going to have to pay me, and like you'd just get caught up in the meeting and you'd walk out and just be like, damn, I didn't ask them to pay me.
Yeah.
But, and then, yeah, believe me, we had plenty of clients that said, look, I'm not interested in paying you. But, and in the early days, it was painful. But we just learned that they're the customers you don't want. Like if
Right.
they're not willing to commit to you, then you don't want them.
Yeah. And to your point earlier, that's the only way you're going to bring your close rate up. Well, it's not the only way, but that's a huge way of how you guys have brought your close rate up, is the people that have said, no, I don't want to pay for that. They probably weren't going to be a good fit anyway.
Yeah.
You weren't going to get the job anyway. And so you didn't have to spend the time. So yeah, no, I think that's great. And I like you mentioning that you guys kind of pre-qualify by having that in your marketing on your website, like setting the expectation that, hey, we're a professional company. If you want to get involved, you can pretty much expect to pay for a legitimate, scope and quote and everything, which I love.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like everyone, if you have I don't know, you've got some sort of disease, you go to a specialist and you have to book in, you have to pay a consultation fee. Like I don't like I like what Sean Van Dyke's doing, like trying to make our industry more professional. Like we risk everything we do every single day, every time we sign a contract. Like there's no reason we shouldn't be treated like professionals. Like we run a business, we deal with lots of money. Yeah, people have got to start treating our industry like professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's to your point, you go to a doctor or, whoever, I mean, you have specialized knowledge and, you're executing on a very complex project. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of management. And so, yeah, I totally support that. I mean, just because it's quoted as, more of a blue collar industry, doesn't mean those other elements aren't there, which is specialized knowledge, complex project, all those things, so, yeah. And I think, if you were to maybe leave our listeners with kind of some parting advice, in this whole getting paid to quote, to plan, to do that work, what would you say to people, especially those, I think, that maybe haven't tested the waters yet and they're a little bit nervous about how it will go, I guess.
Look, I'd really push them to give it a go. Like if they're at a point in their business where they're struggling, they think they might be wasting a lot of the time, or they're not getting enough time to spend with their family or whatever, give it a go, because the time that you save by getting rid of the time wasters that are just shopping around for pricing is amazing. And then I guess another really big thing that it does, it makes you feel like you're appreciated. Like you're not just, people aren't just using you to put a figure on a piece of paper. Like they're actually wanting to work with you, they're wanting your advice, and they're treating you like a professional. So it actually, for me anyway, like it's really made me get my passion back and enjoy what I'm doing again, because I feel like I'm wanted, I'm needed, I'm helping people.
Yeah, I love that. And I've experienced that and seen that in other areas too, which is typically if you offer free advice, people are less likely to follow through with it. But if they pay for it, then
Yeah.
you've got some skin in the game. And whether that's from what we're talking about, where you're paying for a quote on a project, all the way to, like fitness, if somebody's like, yeah, you should work out more and, eat less. Somebody's like, yeah, sure, whatever. But if you pay a coach, it's kind of like, oh yeah, maybe I should work out more and eat less. I had to pay so that I'd actually do it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's multiple layers there, even just from a psychology perspective too. So, yeah, Dwayne, I think that's awesome advice. And yeah, anything else that you want to add for our listeners before we wrap up for today?
Oh, mate, look, just, yeah, can't wait to get over there. I hope you guys really take Quote Spec on board. Look, if any of your listeners want to contact us, we're actually looking for some builders in the States to help us sort of trial it and make sure we set it up correctly for over there. So if some of you guys want to get in contact with us, shoot us a message and we'll make sure we can help them out.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And like I said, we'll link that up in the show notes for you guys. And yeah, Dwayne, thanks so much for joining me today. This was good. I think it's a critical topic as we move forward over the next 5-10 years in our industry. So yeah, thanks again for joining me.
No worries. Thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate it.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed episode 46 with Dwayne Pierce. And I know you guys are on the go, so I always like to break that down into a couple of action items. There were a lot of things that we talked about today, but let's boil them down into a couple of steps. One, I think, is map out your sales process and see maybe where you could insert a couple of things that would help weed out some people that probably aren't a good fit for you. I really liked the questionnaire idea that Dwayne brought up. So having a questionnaire before you go to even your first meeting to make sure you can uncover some information about the project and see if they're even a good fit at a high level, that might save you some time driving to some meetings or even setting up those initial meetings. And then the second one is go ahead and start charging for, scoping out a project. And if you're a little bit concerned about it, maybe set the price a little bit lower than, say Dwayne, I think he was priced at $3,800. If that sounds too high, drop it down a little bit, maybe cut that in half. But I think what you'll find is that allows you to get into this process, and you can always raise the bar later. So if you're a little bit worried, take that step, start charging something, and suddenly people will start valuing that quote that you deliver to them because they've paid for it. And we kind of talked about that psychology of that. If somebody exchanges some money with you, now they're a customer, they've paid you, they're also going to value that information that you give them a lot more. So those are the two big things that stood out to me today, is have a questionnaire that hopefully pre-qualifies some people before the first meeting, and then go ahead and charge something to scope out that project, even if it's a low bar, $500, $1,000, $1,500, something, so that, again, we can exchange money, that person becomes a customer, and they value that work. So good luck, guys. I hope that works, and we'll see you next time on Builder Funnel Radio.